Hey guys, it's Kevin and Michelle Davis, and welcome to another episode of the Sugar High Jeep Build video series. As you might expect, building a Jeep for both a rally and for SEMA in less than 2 months is extremely stressful. And this week, the last couple of weeks have been stressful for a whole variety of reasons, but a couple of reasons in particular.
This week it's been all about color issues. The first thing that we've had an issue with, as you can see here, we got our amazing tires and beadlocks, but we went and had the beadlocks powder coated. And when you get a powder coating done, there's a limited number of colors you can choose from. So when we looked at the color chart, we couldn't find anything that exactly matched the color we needed, but we found one that we thought was close on the little sample, went ahead and had them do it. We got it back, and as you may or may not be able to tell in video, it's hard to tell with colors. The blue on the beadlock does not really match the blue on the wrap at all. In fact, it has a lot more purple in it. Yeah, you can see a little bit closer there, and it's just enough off that it just looks bad. So one of our projects this weekend that we had not expected on is we are going to have to go and sand, get that scuffed up, and we are so fortunate because Marty Hoax of Mars of Bozeman has offered to paint it for us, to get the color mixed properly for us and paint it. It won't be quite as durable as a powder coating, but we will have touch-up paint. So after the rally, if I've scratched it up a bunch on the trails, we'll be able to touch it up before we take it in for SEMA.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to balance between durability, getting the color you want, especially when you're doing a build that is going to be as high profile as SEMA. I wouldn't want to show up and have just that that color variation, especially towards the back where the doors and the rocker panels and all that are very, very blue, so it's pretty noticeable. The other issue we had this week was with the wrap itself. We actually had the vehicle completely wrapped last week, a couple of touch-up things that we needed to do. When we got it back, we realized that our gray wrap was actually brown. Looked a lot like coffee, and this is actually pretty much the color, and it's a little, again, video's hard to tell, but needless to say, it was brown. So back to the drawing board, we took it back to the wrap agency, we came up with a plan which was basically go black. It was fortuitous for us because they actually changed some of the design. They added some stuff on the doors in order to sort of break up the blue a little bit. It just, all in all, it was a great thing. It'll cost a little bit more money, but sometimes, again, you have to do what you have to do. So let me say this week is, the next 10 days are going to be a little bit busy. I just made our list.
Oh my gosh.
And this is our list. We basically have this weekend, all next week, through the end of next weekend to get all of this stuff done. And a lot of these things are little things, but still, that's a heck of a lot of items to get done. Today, the first thing we're going to start with are bumpers, the sliders, and the fenders, because we figure we need something that's going to make a big difference cosmetically to boost our morale as we work through this big thing. So we're going to head and start that. I'm glad you guys have joined us, and thank you for watching. Before we put the bumper back on, we need to put the sway bar back on. We took it off, we painted it, and we need to replace the bushings. So we're going to put new bushings on. These are from Moog. These are poly bushings, which will perform a lot better, last a lot better than the original rubber ones that came on. So we'll put those back on. Part of our new suspension will include new sway bar links and all that. So we don't have to worry about that right now. We're just going to get this put back on so we don't have to mess with it around the bumper. Center them and then push them down. All right, so we got that installed. One of the other things that I did is I want to sort of have this stuff as clean as we can get it. So I took my ONR, which is Optimum No Rinse. Michelle's wearing our awesome sponsor, OptiCoat. And ONR, if you haven't used it, is a freaking awesome product. Basically, you can use it as a waterless wash for the outside. It'll clean leather, it'll clean vinyl, it'll clean interior stuff. So I just basically keep a bucket mixed up, and so when I need to wipe something down, I just grab it and I can wipe it down. It's perfect for anything that you don't want to use a ton of water on. It's basically a waterless, rinseless wash. So you wash it up, wipe it on, wipe it off. So next, we'll get this bumper installed. It should be pretty easy. There's just, we've got the new hardware, and so we need to lift it in place and put it on. So we have to do that last time. So reading the reviews on this thing, I know some people actually, this is a barricade bumper I bought at extremeterrain.com, I think. is the name of the site. Pretty inexpensive bumper and actually pretty nicely made. But one of the issues that people had reported is that some of the bolt holes were not perfectly done, so they ended up having to drill them out. Well, we have 6 bolts, 5 of them fit, and 1 of them doesn't. So the bottom one is probably off by, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, which that's all it takes. So I end up having to hog this out a little bit, and we'll make it fit. We're taking all but 1 of the bolts out to keep it aligned, but we need to pull this back so that when we drill through this, we don't affect the bolts underneath. So Michelle's gonna be drilling. We're just gonna use that stepper bit, or the unibit on here. And basically, I'm just gonna have her stick it right up in there, and we'll make that hole just a little bit bigger.
While we've got everything set up here and got the bumper installed, we're going to go ahead and put the winch on now. So we've got the 8,000-pound Warren winch, and we're going to go ahead get this installed, and then we'll put the ropes and all the electrical components on it later.
So we're continuing to learn painful lessons because we've discovered that you can't access the rear bolt holes for the winch with the bumper completely installed. So now comes the fun part. We have to uninstall the bumper, pull it out, put these bolts in, and start over.
Hi guys! Well, we've learned some more lessons today. When you're mounting a winch and a bumper, there is an order you need to go into, and it's not the order that we went. So we had to go back and redo everything. When you're doing this, the first thing you want to do is mount the fair lead onto the bumper, because once the winch is on there, you can't get the bolts into the holes there to get it on. So you want to mount that first. Then you want to mount your winch onto the bumper, and then mount the bumper onto the vehicle. So we had to go back, take things off, re-put things on. We got the bolts in here, and normally we would probably go ahead and attach this first if we did it in the right order, but we did get the bolts in after taking everything out and putting everything back on. So now we can put this on and keep going. Well, we've got her installed, so we're going to move on now to something else, and then we'll come back later, put the synthetic rope on, and get her all hooked up electronically. All right, next step is the rear bumper, and this time we're a little bit more cautious and kind of look through everything, make sure that there's nothing we need to do before we attach it to the back of the vehicle. So we're going to just bolt this thing on and get it going.
Push it that way. The number of times I've uttered this phrase in this build is starting to get alarming, but that was a huge pain in the ass. So when you read the reviews on these barricade bumpers, which they're actually very nice bumpers, but the metalwork on them is not that precise. And so we actually had to hog out both holes this time because there wasn't enough adjustment either way, which is quite frustrating because you have to take it on and off and all that stuff. So both holes are hogged out, which means I had to use some big fender washers in order to get them to make sure that it's secure. So if you end up getting this bumper, you might wish to get some larger diameter washers. But we've got it on. We're going to grease up this spare tire carrier fitting, put that on, and keep moving. So we did watch the instruction video, and it talks about greasing this fitting so that this will not get rusted and all that stuff in the meantime. So I'm actually just going to grab, I've got tons of different kinds of grease, but this is just a wheel bearing grease, which means it lasts really a long time. It's pretty cheap and easy to come by, especially since it's up on the shelf. So we're going to grease this up and make sure that it keeps moving correctly.
So I just tightened the spare tire carrier to the base here, but this tire carrier is adjustable so that you can put any width of tire on. So I've got to loosen these bolts so we can slide this out, get the tire on, and we want to adjust it so the tire's flat up against it so it's not wobbling around while we're driving. So I'm going to get my socket wrench and get these loosened. For these particular tires, it worked best to basically have it all the way back. So we're just going to lock it in place all the way back.
And the reason we're not mounting this tire right now is because we just sanded down the bead locks. So once we get those painted and everything's remounted, then we can put the spare tire on here.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Yesterday we got the bumpers on both ends, so today we're moving to the side of the vehicle and putting the rock sliders on. And our rock sliders are these awesome ones by Poison Spider, hence the adorable, kind of freaky looking spider on the side. Now rock sliders take a lot of abuse, so they need to be mounted to the frame of the vehicle. So we're going to start by removing and trimming the body bushings. Then we're going to drill holes into the body and then mount everything up. So we'll get this side on and then move on to the other.
So you may have remembered our special OSHA approved lifting device that we used with the skid plate. We're going to use this again. It's just much easier to get underneath here than it is to put something on the ground and try to jack it up with the floor jack. So we'll use this, we'll put it up about this high. I've sort of measured it out. We'll use this to lift the body up enough to get the bushings out and be good to go. So what we found was that in order to lift, whether you're doing this on the ground or whatever, you want to lift it so that it's basically up near the front of the door, because if you lift it anywhere else, it doesn't seem to give enough body lift. The instructions don't say this, but you basically need to remove the front body bushing bolt, the front body mount bolt, the rear body mount bolt, and all three of these. I ended up, in order to get this one out, it just was not lift enough, so I had to use a pry bar in order to get it up. So all Jeeps are different, so you may not have this problem. I also had to loosen the ones on the driver's side too, just to give it a little bit more leverage or a little bit more clearance so it wasn't binding. So managed to get them all out. And the instructions basically say trim 3/16 of an inch, which essentially flattens this out. So it's these, there's an edge on this, it flattens these out so that the clearance can go, it'll clear and fit correctly.
So I used the Sawzall to trim this down. As you can see, it used to come out and now it's just flat, and then finished it off with the grinder to flatten it down. So now that we've got this flat surface, we can just put the rock slider right on top of it. Well, we're finally done with the rock sliders, so let's move on to the back fenders. Now, to finish up the beefy look on the side of the Jeep, we're going to add our Poison Spider rear fender flares. They're real similar to the rock sliders. Fortunately, we don't have to get underneath and take bushings off though. But we're just going to hold them up, mark them, drill them out, and bolt them on.
So if you're going to install these on a TJ, stock TJ in this case, there are some things you need to know. You either need to do a 3/8 inch nut zert, like what we talked about with the front fenders, or you're going to need to do what we do, which is drill out an access hole behind the bolt location so you can get to it. The last two towards the front doors were inaccessible under normal means. The other ones were fine. You had plenty of access on the inner fender, no problem. The ones that are closest to the door, those two were inaccessible, so I ended up drilling a hole underneath in order to get to the last one. And then from the inside tub, which we'll go ahead and cover up and fill in once we do the bed liner, so not a big deal. We'll end up doing the same thing on this side. Just wanted you to be aware of that. I think probably the nut zert's an easier way to go. You can also drill that hole smaller like what we did on the back and tap that out. But in our case, one of the factory location nut zerts for the original small screws were in the way. We had to drill it out, didn't have any choice. So on to the next one.
Hey everyone, we're back in the shop again this bright early morning, and we are going to be in the shop every day now until we get this thing done because we are on a major time crunch, and unfortunately the rally is not going to delay itself another month for us. So today we are going to get going on the diff covers. We've got these awesome new beefy diff covers, so we're going to go take the old ones off and get these on.
So the nice thing about Jeep, at least the Dana 44 axles, is the diff covers have drain plugs in them, drain and fill plugs. Some axle diff covers actually have a drain plug and then a fill plug, which is really nice because even with this drain plug, it'll only let out a little bit, and then we'll end up having to crack the diff cover open so we can drain out the rest, which makes a huge mess. This adjustable drain cover and the lift obviously make it a lot less messy than a typical drain pan and all that. So we're gonna get started by removing the drain plug, drain fill plug, and then we'll start popping everything off and go from there. There you go. So we use this basically is a 3/8, and so you really just use the end of a socket wrench to stick that in.
Okay.
And as you let it loose, I like to use containers that oil came in. And I like to do this and not use my normal drain plug for oil because differential fluid freaking stinks. And so I want to try to get this in this, get it sealed, and get it out of the shop as soon as possible because it just stinks. So we'll let that drain a little bit. And we are putting new ones on. We have new drain plugs, so you can just throw that right there. We don't need those anymore.
Ooh, that does stink.
So whenever you install a diff cover, or when these were installed at the factory, they RTV them, which is they're sealed on. So you have to break that seal loose, and the most important thing is you want to just be careful not to like totally scratch the surface of the differential so that it'll still seal correctly. So I like, we've referred to this as a big ass screwdriver, big ass hammer, whatever, but has a nice flat blade. It's not real sharp. And then we'll need a putty knife to remove the rest of the RTV. And then we have some acetone that will clean that surface completely, make sure all the oil is off of it, and then be able to reinstall the new one. And this is why you want some sort of drain catch underneath it. This makes such a mess and it's so nasty smelling. Get this on your clothes, you might as well go in and change. So now we're going to clean it with a little acetone and then be ready to put the new one on.
Now I've got the RTV and I'm going to attach this to the diff cover so that when the diff cover goes on the differential, it will make like a silicone seal between the two. And so I'm going to tap into my cake decorating skills as I would piping icing on a cake, and I'm going to put a bead of this going around the cover.
So we'll put all the bolts in. This comes with all new hardware, but we won't cinch it down. We'll basically want to let that cure up a little bit, let it seal, and then we'll be able to put it on and tighten these and torque these down.
Well, we've got both covers on now, and we're waiting for the back one to cure. So we're going to go ahead and start filling up the front one with the diff oil.
So this is 75-140, which is what the Dana 44 calls for. This little device right here will solve a ton of problems for you and will make your life easier. Basically, it's a little pump, and it's made specifically for this application, or pretty much any fluid that has this same top. It screws right on the top of the bottle, and then you can put that up there and you can fill that in. So when you fill differential, you basically, the fill plug is your gauge to see how much to put in it. You fill it till it is at the top of this and starts to pour out. We're using Royal Purple full synthetic, and it already has a friction modifier in it, which is what this calls for. That's an important thing to know when you're doing differentials. Royal Purple is an awesome gear oil. They make oil, they make transmission fluid, they make all sorts of things. They're big in the race community. So this is good stuff, so we'll get this filled up and we'll move on. Follow this, and then you, yeah.
Well, we finished up. We've got both of the new differential covers on, and we've got them both filled with gear oil. So I think that's a pretty good place to end this episode. What do you think?
I agree. We've got a bunch more stuff to do. We're going to keep working throughout this week, so look for more episodes. If you're not already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Team Sugar High, and please don't forget to subscribe. Use that little button down there. It not only makes you a better mechanic, but it makes you a better person. So don't forget to visit us at teamsugarhigh.com as well for more information. And keep watching. The rally is pretty soon.
Coming up.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. Next step is to attach the rock sliders, or the rocker knockers as they're called. Is it okay if I say rocker knockers? Because I really like that term. Next step is to attach the rock sliders, or the knocker rockers as they're... No! Crap! Or the knocker rockers as they're called. Next step is to attach the rock sliders, or the... or the knocker rock. No! Is it not?
It's rocker knockers.
Or the rocker knockers as they're called. Knocker rockers?
You said it right
rocker
the first time.
Next step is to attach the rock sliders, or the rocker knockers as they're called. These are by Poison Spider, and they mount underneath the body bushings. So we're going to loosen the body bolts, lift the body up, and slide them in, and then tighten them back on.